find the product. Remember that multiplying by powers of 10 moves the decimal to the right. So when we multiply by 100, it's going to move the decimal 2 spots to the right. So this would be 85, but the 5s keep repeating. So it will say 85.5 repeating. Vic attempts to write the fraction form of 0.81 repeating by solving a linear equation. First, they let x represent 0.81 repeating. Then they multiplied by 10, so now it's 8.1, and then the 8s and the 1s keep going. They subtracted x from both sides, leaving them with 9x, but then they end up with this piece here. And we don't want a repeating chunk in our fraction. We want to rewrite it as a fraction with whole numbers for our top and bottom, or integers. What differences do you notice between this problem and the problems we solved in lesson 5? This is still written as a repeating decimal. It's not written as a regular fraction. Another difference that I notice is that the ones we did in the previous lesson only had one number that repeats. Now I have 2. So the strategy is going to look a little bit different. So our notes from the previous lesson said step 1 is to set x equal to the number we want to change into the fraction. So we're still starting with x is the repeating decimal. Then step 2 said multiply by powers of 10 to move one repeating chunk out of the decimal and into the whole numbers. So if we just multiplied by 10, that would give us 8.1, and then the 8s and the 1 repeat. But that doesn't move the whole chunk. So instead of multiplying by 10 to get the whole chunk, we need to multiply by 100 because there are 2 decimal places that repeat. So that would move it 2 spots. And then we would have 81.81 repeating. Then step 3 says to subtract the equation from step 2 from step 1. So it'll look like this. 100x minus x, and 100x was 81.81 repeating, and x was 0.81 repeating. 100x minus x leaves us with 99x. 81.81 repeating minus 0.81 repeating leaves us with 81. And then the final step says to solve it for x. So we're dividing both sides by 99. And we get that it is rewritten as 81 over 99. Now I don't have any repeating decimal pieces in my fraction. I have 2 whole numbers, one for the top and one for the bottom. So we just adjust. Instead of multiplying by 10, we need to multiply by a different power of 10 until we get the whole chunk out of the decimal place. For problems 3 through 5, write the fraction form of the decimal. Identify the power of 10 that both sides of the equation need to be multiplied by to find the fraction form. Here this has 3 pieces that are going to repeat, so we need to multiply by 1,000 with 3 zeros. And then we need 1,000x. And then we're going to subtract them. 1,000x minus x is 999x. 132.132 repeating minus 0.132 repeating is 132. Then we can divide both sides by 999, leaving us with x and the fraction form of that repeating decimal. This one has 2 decimal places that repeat, so we're going to multiply by 100. It has 2 zeros. So it would be 63.63 repeating. Then we will subtract them. 100 minus x is 99x. 63.6 repeating minus 0.63 repeating is 63. Then we'll solve it for x by dividing both sides by 99. This one has 3 decimals that repeat, so we're going to multiply by 1,000. That would move it 3 spots, so it would give us 26, and then the repeating chunk. Subtract it from both of them. 1000x minus x is 999x. 26.026 repeating minus 0.026 repeating is just 26. Divide both sides by 999 to solve it for x. Leave it in the fraction form because that's the whole goal. Here's an example where not all of the digits in the decimal repeat. So that 1 here is in the decimal's place value, but it doesn't go along with the repeating pattern. So the strategy we use is just slightly different. Instead of using x and our multiple, we're going to need to get this first part out of the decimal that doesn't repeat and then continue from there. So they still start by setting x equal to the number. Then they multiplied by 10 to get the non-repeating piece out of the decimal. And then they multiplied by 2 more 10s, so 1,000 this time, so that the whole repeating chunk is out of the decimal as well. Then instead of using 1,000 and x, they use 1,000 and 10 because the repeating pieces line up. So for problems 7 and 8, write the fraction form of the decimal. Identify the powers of 10 that both sides of the equation need to be multiplied by to find the fraction form. We're going to start by multiplying by a power of 10, because that'll give us 21.38 repeating. And then we also need to move it 2 more spots, so 2 more zeros. That would move it 2 more place values, so 2138.38 repeating. And then we're going to subtract those. So 1,000 minus 10 is 990x. The 38 and the 38 repeating piece subtract to 0. 8 minus 1 is 7. 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 minus 0 is 1. And 2 minus 0 is 2. Then we will divide by 990 to solve it for x. This one we're going to multiply by 10, so it moves the decimal one spot. And then we need to multiply by another 10 to move that repeating piece out, so that would be 100. And then we will subtract 100 minus 10 is 90. 74.4 repeating minus 7.4 repeating. The repeating pieces subtract out. And then I have 74 minus 7, which is 67. Then we can divide both sides by 90. And we have the fraction version of that repeating decimal. Please make sure that your workbook is filled in for this lesson, and any additional notes you need to write down, either from lesson 5 or for this lesson, are written in your composition book as well.